What's up, everybody? It's Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports. Once again, continuing our NFL division talk. We've moved on from the NFC, now going into the AFC. Preseason starting back up now this week, so football's really getting close, and each day closer to the start of the season, which we all are looking forward to talk about some real games and real events. Whereas right now it's just predictions and stuff. But I'm joined today by Connor and Nathan. So,
I'm back, baby.
yep, Connor's been absent the past couple podcasts, but he is back. Eric's taking this one off because we don't want four voices on this one. We did that for NFC North, but it got to be pretty long, so we figured we'd stick with three people in this. And since I'm in every one, since I've started up this thing, I'm here, and then Nate is a Patriots fan, so of course he wants to be in this episode. And
Oh yeah.
then Connor's second or third favorite team is the Bills.
Well,
So
my dad is a huge Bills fan, so
yeah.
he's a die-hard Buffalo Bills fan, born and raised in Rochester. So
Yeah. So we've got some different opinions for those teams represented here, but uh, in before we start this though, this is probably the least interesting, I think, of all the divisions in football, and it's been that way for the past decade with really no changes in first place. I mean, second through fourth the past couple of years has been quite a roller coaster, but as far as first place goes,
aside from 2008 when the Dolphins managed to win
yeah,
that year.
yeah. If it wasn't for that, I mean, it probably still has got like a longest streak for their division winning. But if they had Brady for 2008, it would for sure.
Well, and the funny thing about that year too is that they were actually tied. Like they had the same record as the Dolphins.
Yeah.
The Dolphins just had them beat on like a conference record, I think. So even that year, they almost won the division.
Yeah.
With Matt Castle.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for you guys listening on iTunes and such, our rankings for the AFC East. So Zach, Nathan, and Eric all have the same order: Patriots first, Jets second, Bills third, Dolphins fourth. Connor's got the Patriots first, Bills second, Jets third, Dolphins fourth. So some similarities between the two. Really, it's just between the Jets and Bills that is the only sort of debate.
I know you guys think that's favoritism, but it's not. I'll explain.
Yeah, I asked Connor before this, was that a loyalty pick or a reason pick? And he said he's got some points, so I'm curious to see. But when I was just going through the projected depth charts and stuff, well, I'm not the biggest Jets fan, as we'll get to them. I still think that they'll finish second, but let's get this rolling and let's talk about the Bills first. So Connor, go ahead and introduce the Bills.
Yeah, Buffalo Bills, the ever-suffering fan base of the NFL. So yeah, this should be an interesting year for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of struggles last year, a lot of quarterback issues last year. You know, they drafted Josh Allen for him to be the guy, but then he went and got injured, and they had to bring in Matt Barkley as backup. Well, he actually played fairly decently in the two games. I think it was two games he played in last year. And then they had that stint where they had to call in Derek Anderson, who was currently at the time training for a golf tournament. So, so we all saw how that went. You know, that game against the Patriots when the Bills were actually holding their own. They were actually keeping the Patriots in check, but they just could not make any offense at all thanks to Derek Anderson. So, but pretty much this is actually a team that's quite different this year, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, Josh Allen's still supposed to be the guy, and I know he got a lot of coaching from Derek Anderson last year, but obviously, if you look at their depth chart, there's no veteran quarterback on the team anymore. I think Derek Anderson is still going to hang around like in a bit of a coaching role, but in terms of depth on the team, you know, him, Matt Barkley, and a rookie Tyree Jackson. So there's no veteran leadership at the quarterback position, which could hurt them. Now, running back position is really interesting. They brought in Frank Gore in the offseason, which, you know, he's kind of like Adrian Peterson in the way he seems to be an ageless wonder. I mean, I don't know how the guy's still doing it at age 36 or whatever, but I've heard clips from and seen clips of him at training camp, and he looks good. So, and I think it can really help the Bills with LaShawn McCoy, which I'm actually honestly pretty surprised they brought LaShawn McCoy back. I'm not sure if they're thinking about trading him. I think I've heard some rumors that they might be trying to trade him because he's taking money. He's got a big contract, and he had a really terrible year last year. I think he had 500 yards rushing, like 580 or something, which is by far his worst year. But all these people out there saying I don't think LaShawn McCoy is washed up yet. I think their main issue was offensive line last year, which is the reason why I'll get to this a little bit later with Le'Veon Bell as well. But LaShawn McCoy is one of those running backs that needs an offensive line, whereas Frank Gore is the kind of running back that, even without the offensive line, he's going to make a hole. He's going to hard-nosed up the middle. He's going to run over somebody and get a couple yards. LaShawn McCoy, as a shifty, shady nickname right there, as a shifty back, he needs a hole to open. If you can open a hole for him, then he's incredible in the open field. But if you can't open a hole, then he's going nowhere. He's just going to get tackled in the backfield or, whatever like that. And LaShawn McCoy, the other thing he brings to the table, people didn't really talk about this last year, but LaShawn McCoy is honestly probably one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. Obviously, there's ones that are better, like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Le'Veon Bell. But McCoy is definitely up there in multi-purpose backs. So he can play on third down, which I'll be interested to see how much they use him on third down, considering they brought in TJ Yeldon from Jacksonville. Zach knows a lot about him.
Yeah.
Who he's a
pass catcher too.
Right, he's a third down back.
Yeah.
But the Bills, they did a lot this season to shore up their offensive line. They brought in Mitch Morse, who is from what I've heard, he was the center in KC. So he's a really good center, but unfortunately for him and the Bills, he's been having a lot of concussion problems lately. And I think he's in the concussion protocol right now, and it's like his fourth concussion. So despite him being a really good center, I don't know what's going to happen with that. But they brought in a lot of new pieces on the offensive line to shore up that. They brought in John Brown and Cole Beasley at the wide receiver position to help Zay Jones, who still has a bit of issues with trying to catch and hold on to the ball. But I think he'll be okay. So the offense, it's going to be a work in progress. It's not going to be great. It's not going to light the world on fire, but I think it will be serviceable, especially if Josh Allen can really if he can develop as a passer, because we saw last year he was a great rusher. I mean, he was the Bills' leading rusher last year. So he can certainly run the ball, kind of like Tyrod Taylor did, but he needs to develop as a pass thrower. If he can do that, then I think the offense is serviceable enough that they can work with that. But when you're talking about the Buffalo Bills, you're talking about the strength of the team, you're talking about the defense. Now, the Bills, they had the number 2 defense last year and the number 1 defense against the pass last year. So this is by far the strength of the team. The front seven, the defensive line is decent. They drafted Ed Oliver, who I've heard has really been meshing well with the team. And they still got Shaq Lawson down there. I see they have him listed as a backup this year. This is going to be a real prove-it year for Shaq Lawson because they've had him for 3 seasons now. One of those he was injured, and he was supposed to be the next big thing when he came out of Clemson, but he really hasn't proved it. So this is going to be a prove-it year for him. Jerry Hughes, a great pass rusher, and then you got the linebacking core. Lorenzo Alexander still getting it done. He's in his mid-30s. Surprised that he's still as good as he is. Tremaine Edmonds, who is, I think he just turned 20, actually, so very young to be running the offense, but he's a beast as well. But as I mentioned, the Bills had the number 1 defense against the pass last year. Tre'Davious White and Micah Hyde are outstanding DBs. Jordan Poyer and Kevin Johnson are good too. They're not superstars, but they can get it done. They can pair well with them. So I think the reason why I think they're going to be second this year ahead of the Jets is because the defense is still going to be good. I don't know if they'll be the number 2 defense again, but I'd say they're going to be a top 10 defense for sure. And I think with the improvements on the offensive line and bringing in more wide receivers to help Josh Allen, I think the offense is going to be serviceable enough to where that they can get into second place. I don't think they'll challenge for the division crown at all, but I think they can get into second. If I have to, I'd probably give them a ceiling of probably 9 wins and missing the playoffs. I think if they really want to make the playoffs this year, they're kind of like with all the teams in this division, really, they're going to have to beat New England at least once. I mean, Tom Brady, he's beaten New England, 30, or he's beaten Buffalo 33 times now or something like that. I think the Bills have only ever beaten the Patriots like 3 times since Brady's been there. So they need to beat New England if they want to have any chance of making the playoffs. They still won't challenge for the division crown even if they beat New England. But if they want to try and make the playoffs, get that wild card spot, they need to beat New England. And their best chance is going to be in Week 4. They have the home game against New England in Week 4, and we know New England gets off to a slow start usually. So that they're going to have to take advantage of that game if they really want a chance. So ceiling 9 wins, missing the playoffs. I don't think they can get to 10 wins and get that wild card spot. Floor, I'd say they probably have a floor of 3rd place, maybe like 6 wins. If the offense can't keep it together, if the offense performs like they did last year, I don't think they're going to be as bad as Miami, but 6 wins, 3rd place, My dad always likes to joke about Buffalo, how, they're never good enough to make the playoffs, but they're never bad enough to get a high draft pick. And yeah. I think that's going to be the case again this year, unfortunately for him. So, but I'll let you guys give your thoughts on why you think Buffalo's going to make 3rd instead of 2nd.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So I had a tough time thinking this one through. This didn't come to me just by, some of the other ones I just kind of went off my gut feelings and stuff. This one I really had to look deep at between the Jets and Bills, and I definitely think it's going to be a close finish for that 2nd place spot. I would guess right now it'd be a 1 or 2 game difference between the 2 records between the Bills and Jets, but the main reason why I still don't have much confidence is that this offensive line's not that great. They definitely got better, like you said, with the center spot, and then Quinton Spain is a good left guard too, but the tackles are really young, Cody Ford and Deion Dawkins, which that's asking a lot to protect not Brady, Josh Allen.
I don't know why I said Brady.
Yeah, and then another thing too is I don't really see a tight end threat on this team. They've got a rookie, Dawson Knox, and Tyler Kroft, who's injured right now, but there's no real tight end threat on this list on their roster here that I can see. Jason Kroon down there, he's a veteran, but and then the running backs room is going to be really weird, and this is one of the weirdest backfields in the game right now because they've got Shady McCoy, Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, and TJ Yeldon. I think they definitely got to get rid of McCoy because not only has his production kind of waned last year, but he seems to not be a great influence on the team from what I've heard. I don't think he's the best leader necessarily. I think Gore would be a much better mentor to Devin Singletary, the rookie from FAU. And then Yeldon is probably going to be their 3rd down back, mainly as a pass catcher. That's mainly what he was used for in Jacksonville. And when you've got, no real wide receiver threats, if Antonio Brown went to Buffalo, I'd have put it 2nd.
he shut that down really fast. I remember that. They actually had a trade in place, I think, with Buffalo, and then Antonio Brown found out of it, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to Buffalo."
So with a young quarterback like Allen, he's going to be looking to dump the ball off and Yeldon's going to get stats. It's going to be an interesting fantasy pick because Yeldon every year seems to go undrafted or picked up in the later rounds, but pretty much every year somebody picks him up a couple weeks into the season and mainly it's for his, pass catching. He doesn't get a whole lot of carries, but Singletary is a promising back. I know he was a bruiser at FAU, but I think they really need to get rid of McCoy just to get something for him. You just get something for him now.
Before it's too late, before you can't get anything for him.
And then the wide receiver core is another reason why I don't have Buffalo, or why I have Buffalo third, because I'm not really a fan of any of these guys. Zay Jones has been in the league a couple years now. I think he was hurt maybe his first year, but not a whole lot of confidence in him. Cole Beasley got a pretty big deal from Dallas, but he's a slot receiver, average, I'd say. And then John Brown is all right, but as a number one guy, there's not a whole lot of weapons for Josh Allen to throw to, which means I think he's going to run the ball a lot, and that could be problems for injuries for him.
At least he's a big guy.
He's big. He's big, and he is a great runner. I'll give him that. But offensively, this team, I don't think they're going to put a whole lot of points up. And then defensively, their secondary is really good, but their front four, I'm not got a ton of confidence in. Ed Oliver is going to be a player to watch for sure, but I don't see this front four putting up a huge sack season. But the secondary is good, like Connor said, with Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White. And then the linebackers are serviceable. So this team's not as bad, I think, as you might think, but I'll give a ceiling of 8 wins, second place, and then a floor of 5 wins in third place. I don't think they're gonna stoop down to the Dolphins level, but
not that bad.
Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Bills. So they're not gonna get a super high pick. Like you said, I always felt that way about the Orlando Magic. They never could make the playoffs, but they were never, a top 3 worst team to get that number 1 pick. So they always ended up picking 5 or 6, but it's all about making your draft picks, and this team offensively has not had a whole lot of success drafting. But I'll let Nate give his thoughts.
I'm kind of on the same page as Zach here. I think the Bills are not as bad as a lot of people think they are. I definitely think this defense is pretty underrated. I like the Ed Oliver pick a lot. I think Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano can definitely get it down to the linebacker level. I think they're both had pretty slept-on seasons last year. And obviously, like you've all said, that secondary is really good. I think the one thing that's going to hold them back is their offense, which, kind of like we talked about, there's not a whole lot of wide receiving talent, which I think other than that, they have some serviceable pieces. It's just, like Zach was saying, I don't recognize any of these tight ends. I think I've heard of Tyler Kroft, but he's hurt, so obviously that's not a great situation to be in. And I think these wide receivers is kind of underwhelming to me. They've all been in the league for a little bit, and they haven't really done much of anything. I am really interested to see this running back situation. I know we've talked about it a lot, but obviously LaShawn McCoy is a superstar here. But like Zach was saying, I think he's getting he's at the point where I could see him having a down year this year stats-wise. And at this point, I don't know if you won't be better off seeing what your other guys have, in terms of, I'm really excited to watch Devin Singletary and see what he can do. I think a lot of people didn't follow him in college because he played at FAU, kind of smaller school in Conference USA, but he put up 54 touchdowns total over his junior and senior years combined once he got the starting job. So the talent's definitely there. I've watched him live. He's strong and fat, really fast for his size. So I'd like to see him get some carries this year and see what he has, if he can continue having that success in the NFL. So, but overall, I just don't think this offense, as a complete unit, is going to be good enough to take this team, to compete for the division or even compete for a wild card spot. So I think doing the ceiling and floor, kind of part of it. I think their ceiling could be 8 or 9 wins. I went back and forth between them and the Jets as my second and third teams. I think the Jets have a little bit more talent on paper, at least. So that's why I picked them to finish second. But I could easily see the Bills finishing second instead. And then floor-wise, I could see them, at 4 wins too. But I don't see them. It's hard for me to see them doing worse than the Dolphins this year. Barring any injuries to like Josh Allen or Tre'Davious White or someone important like that.
Yeah. So now we'll talk about the Dolphins next year, the team that we kind of said, oh, we don't think they're going to go down, be as bad as the Dolphins. And this Dolphins team is pretty bad, let me just tell you.
Bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
they're going to be
really
competing for a top draft pick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The tank for Tua thing. They seem to be linked to Tua.
That's already been
more than any
I saw
team,
that hashtag last year with him and with the Dolphins jerseys
Damn.
edited on.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and if they get that number one pick, I'm sure they're gonna take Tua. But
At least a quarterback.
yeah, so here that's the weird thing. Their quarterback room is so weird because they've got Fitzpatrick and Rosen right now, and that's, I'd say, probably the only true battle in the NFL for the starting quarterback spot. I could be wrong, but
well, except for I think maybe Case Keenum and Dwayne Haskins could be one too.
okay, yeah. But
yeah, not very many besides those two.
Not many this year. So my, Fitzpatrick is such an interesting guy because people write him off, but last year with Tampa, he started out the season so well, and I think Tampa was just so quick to pull the plug on him and put Winston back in after one. Like, he didn't even have that bad of a game in the Pittsburgh game, but
well, he almost let a comeback in that game too.
Yeah,
I was getting really nervous watching that. I was like, "Oh my goodness, he's actually like playing good now."
But like, I think they just gave up on they wanted Winston to play, so they really kind of waited for any sort of slacking ability. Whereas with the Dolphins, they don't have a whole lot invested in Rosen because they didn't pick him with the number one pick. They just traded a third round pick, I believe, for him. So they don't have, a whole lot invested in Rosen. And plus, they're planning on Tua next year. So Rosen is really going to have to impress them. And from what they've said in training camps, I don't think he's, the fact that there's still a battle going on is bad signs for him as a Dolphin, because if he was right now like the clear cut number one guy, I would say, okay, there's a chance, if he for sure wins the job, there's no debate there, then he might surprise people and play well enough for them to value him as their franchise quarterback. But I just feel like they're not gonna, they'll play him. I'm sure he'll get some starts, but he's gonna have to really, really impress for them to stick with him as their future, because I think they held on to Tannehill a little bit too long. And I wasn't a fan of the Tannehill pick when they picked him too, because he wasn't really a true quarterback. He played like tight end and stuff. And it seems like these players that come from different positions, I know Blake Bortles was like a linebacker too in high school. These players that move positions to quarterback, they don't seem to do that great. If they go from quarterback to another position, I can kind of see that. But when you don't grow up playing the position your whole time, and I mean, I'll stop talking. This is kind of like the old Dolphins, but so I think I think the whole Dolphins fan base is really set on Tua, so that Rosen's going into another kind of bad situation because he came from Arizona, where after they got the number one pick and got Cliff Kingsbury as their coach, he was kind of forced his way out, pretty early into his career. I think that's going to be the same case here, but Devontae Parker is their or Kenny Stills. Their wide receivers are okay. Probably actually the bright spot on this team. And then their offensive line is very bad. Laramie Tunsil is solid left tackle, but the other guys, I mean, you could completely scrap that. I think like
Jordan Mills was part of that failing Buffalo offensive line last year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, God, man, it's you can scrap that. Other than Tunsil, you can really scrap that whole offensive line. Well, I guess Michael Dieter's a rookie, so we'll have to wait and see about him. But and then defense, and then running. Oh, let me get to running back wise. I saw a question or something on Twitter a little while ago about for fantasy Drake or Balaj. Who would you go with? And I think I would go with Drake between the two of them, but it's no clear cut number one guy, and honestly, neither of them are gonna light up your world. So not a whole lot of great running back support for the team, and then defensively, they're pretty bad. Just looking at these, but they have the money because they gave Xavier Howard a huge deal. He's the highest paid corner right now, which I don't know if he deserves to be the highest paid, but he's certainly a top 5 corner right now, and he's young, so that's a bright spot for him. Like I thought their wide receivers were a bright spot, but the defensive line, Christian Wilkins, a guy to watch, but linebackers are pretty poor. Their secondary is but he's and Minkah Fitzpatrick too. I don't know why he's not listed as a starter there. That seems weird. This website's had some questionable things before, but that's another weird one. Because he was actually okay he was pretty good for him last year. I'm not sure why he's not the starter there. But, this team is just already, when you start out the season projected to finish like dead last like they have been, there's really, it's really hard to overcome that and stuff. I can see someone like the Bills who are not dead last or anything, but kind of in that bottom tier, rising up to be like an average team. But when you're rated dead last, I mean, that puts a drag on your team. This team doesn't think they're going to do well. They're probably not. New head coach. It's just not going to be a good season for Miami. I'm surprised that they won as many games as they did last year because they also had a pretty bad team. But I'm going to give a ceiling and floor. Ceiling 5 wins, floor 2 wins. I think they're in that 2 to 5 win category. I'll settle on 3 wins. I think they're the worst team. So sorry, Dolphins fans, but I would be shocked. This would be the team I'd be most shocked about reaching 500. So I'll let you guys go ahead.
I don't want to pile on the Dolphins, but this is definitely, I could definitely see them being the worst team in the NFL and getting that number 1 pick next year or next spring. Kind of like what Zach was saying, their offensive talent it's not great, but it's not awful either. Some of these guys have performed at various points in their careers, but it just goes back to that O-line. Laramie Tunsil has been solid since he came in the league. Obviously, we don't know how good Michael Dieter is going to be because he was a draft pick this year, but the rest of the line just does not inspire any confidence that they'll be able to open up anything for the passing game or the running game. And that's really where it all starts, the O-line. If they can't, provide, the Dolphins don't have anyone that's talented enough to create on their own. They don't have if they had a Pro Bowl running back there in the end, maybe they could at least be competitive on offense, but I don't see Kalen Balaj or Kenyon Drake getting it done, with the O-line not opening up holes for them. And they have some solid wide receivers. Albert Wilson, Kenny Stills, Devontae Parker have been pretty good throughout their career. They're really serviceable, and if Mike Gesicki can become the tight end that people thought he was going to be, or he was hyped up as the best tight end coming out of college last year. See if he can produce. But it all comes back to that O-line just scares me. And plus, I mean, I like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's been a fun guy to watch. His career, you never know what kind of game he's going to turn in. But I think I think the situation they're in right now where he's playing, clearly better than Josh Rosen so far in training camp, I think that's not a situation you want to be in if you're the Dolphins. He was kind of a guy that you brought in to, kind of, I guess, getting them through this year. And now that they have a lot invested in Josh Rosen, like you're saying, it's only a third-round pick. Third-round pick they traded for him. It's not ideal when he can't, at least show in training camp, throwing on, 7-on-7s that he's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's been on, I don't know, 10 teams in 10 years or something like that.
Well, let me check that.
I don't probably not exactly.
No, yeah.
Like exaggeration.
No, I do want to just see what his
Let's see, Buffalo, the Rams, the Bengals,
Bills,
got those three.
Okay, so he started with. I'll go in order: the Rams, Bengals, Bills, Titans, Texans, Jets, Bucks, Dolphins.
So 8 and 14.
He never stays at a place more than his longest stint was in Buffalo for 3 years. That's the longest, but mostly it's just been 1 year, 1 year at each team. He just goes from team to team.
Kind of like Sam Bradford.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all over the league.
I think he finally retired, actually, though.
Bradford?
I thought he was retired for a little bit, and then Sam Bradford.
Yeah, Sam Bradford.
Yeah, I think he's retired.
Retired in honor of Hall of Fame. Okay, I was gonna say retired in the Hall of Fame. What?
Whoa.
Okay. Maybe Oklahoma's Hall of Fame, but
he's an unsigned free agent right now. Who knows what's gonna be? Yeah.
Hey man, he's been racking in that cash on those 1 year deals.
Oh,
so
yeah, he's financially set. Back to the Dolphins here.
Back to the Dolphins. So that's the quarterback situation's not an enviable one to be in, to say the least. And I won't say too much about their defense, but that's not, there's not really anyone besides maybe Christian Wilkins. We'll see if he can produce his rookie year. And I do think Xavier Howard earned that contract they gave him. I think he's been a little bit underrated just because of how bad the Dolphins have been. He doesn't get as much hype as, Ramsey and some of these other guys. But I think he's, a great piece to have out there at cornerback. But other than him and Wilkins and maybe, if Kiko Alonso can keep being a serviceable starter, I don't think this defense has a whole lot of talent either. So I think it's going to be a long year for Dolphins fans, unfortunately. The ceiling would be, I guess I'll go with Zach on this one with 5 wins and floor probably at 2, with the number 1 pick in the draft after being the worst team in the league. So it's kind of where I'm at with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, these guys hit on it. The Dolphins are going to be one of the worst, if not the worst teams in the league this year. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's one of those. Nathan mentioned this, that, he surprises people. He can have these really good games out of nowhere. I mean, one of those 3 wins that the Bills have had over the Patriots here since Brady was there, one of those, Ryan Fitzpatrick was at quarterback, and he led a huge comeback in the second half. So who knows which Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to show up. I'm with Zach that I don't think Josh Rosen will be here longer than a year. If he is, then he's just going to be a backup because, I mean, they didn't bring him in to be the guy. So, but I mean, I'll like Zach said, I see him playing a few games this year if Fitzpatrick turns back into the old Fitzpatrick, because he has these games where he'll completely light the world on fire and throw for like 5 touchdowns, but then the next week he'll throw 6 picks. So, like, I think the most fantasy points I've ever gotten out of a defense was when I had the Kansas City Chiefs defense going against the Jets, and Fitzpatrick threw 6 interceptions against them, and the Chiefs defense got like 35 points for me that week.
I remember that.
Yeah. Zach remembers that week because it's the largest loss I've ever handed him in fantasy football.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad.
It wasn't. It was like 190 to like 70 something or something. Like my team
It
was
was
like
Brutal.
It was really bad because Connor had like his best week he's ever had.
I had
Best
like
week
four
probably
players
anybody's
over
ever
30
had.
points.
And then I also had a really bad week too. So the combination of those two things, it wasn't even like, oh, I had like the second or third highest for the week. Like I just got screwed because I had to play Connor. Like it was a true like biggest blowout thing or the what's that medal that they give? Like
Yeah, the biggest blowout.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
the biggest blowout medal. Yeah,
Yahoo.
he earned that for sure. That'll never be beat probably.
Yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, so I'm really interested to see how Kenyon Drake does this year because I remember towards the end of last year he really started to. People were like, "Oh, Kenyon Drake's good, blah 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 blah. He's going to be a lot better." But I mean, the fact that he's not even listed as the starter here kind of shows that he's how inconsistent he is. I mean, kind of like Fitzpatrick, kind of like this whole offense. Really, it's just inconsistent. I feel like if they can there could be weeks where if they can put it together, I think this offense could actually be kind of dangerous. But I just don't see all the pieces coming together that often. Maybe like one or two games this year. And like you guys talk about how garbage the offensive line is outside of Laramie Tunsil. And yeah, and the defense too. I mean, aside from Xavier Howard, Rashad Jones I think is a little bit of a underrated safety, but he's still not, anywhere near the level that he should be playing at. And Christian Wilkins is unknown. Kiko Alonso's been okay. I mean, he had that sensational rookie year in Buffalo, and then then he got injured or whatever, and then he's been average since then. So I'm probably going to go with the same ceiling and floor as you guys, a 5-win ceiling, which would probably still be fourth place, and then probably a 2-win floor. I could even see them going, it wouldn't shock me if they went 0-16, honestly. So I don't think it'll happen, but if it does happen, it wouldn't shock me.
If it does, it'll be the Dolphins.
Yeah.
I'll just
I
say
think, Saquon will keep the Giants from doing that, but I don't think the Dolphins have anybody to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I picked the Giants to finish third, but with all these injuries and stuff that have been going on, if I could go back and change it, I would change my pick to them finishing last.
Yeah,
but
and you might change your other 2 picks too. We'll get to Zeke later in the show.
Yeah.
You might also consider doing that.
But yeah, Miami. Yeah, they're bad.
All right, Nate. So moving on to the Patriots. You're a Patriots fan. I'll let you take the floor here.
Yeah, so I mean, this obviously is a pretty basic pick. I've got them first, like we all do. Mainly just because I think they've really done a great job this off season of reloading after their title team they had last year. I know a lot of people are worried. They don't think they're going to be as good this year because, obviously Gronk retired. We lost Trey Flowers in free agency to the Detroit Lions, which is the big loss for our pass rush, and then we lost our left tackle Trent Brown to the Raiders on that huge contract, which he was a big part in us winning that Super Bowl last year, just because of the way he locked down the left side of the O-line and kept Brady protected. But all in all, I think they've done a good job of filling those huge holes on offense and defense, and I think improving at a few positions. Obviously, Tom Brady's still going strong. Every year we get the takes that this is the year he's finally gonna be bad. He's finally gonna fall off the cliff. He's 42 years old, but kind of like I said in the last episode about Drew Brees, I'll believe he's going to be bad when I finally see him go out there and, play multiple bad games in a row, and I believe in him until he's physically going to show that he's not there anymore. So as long as I think the biggest thing for the Pats is just continuing to surround him with weapons offensively, which I do think they've done this offseason. I like their sorry. Okay.
No, I got the list here. You're talking about their weapons, so I wanted to move back and make sure you got your facts right.
Yeah. So the wide receivers still got Edelman, who's Brady's favorite target, who's always great to have. But I'm really excited about the addition of N'Keal Harry in the draft. I think he's gonna be a big time wide receiver out of Arizona State. He's 6'3", and he can go up and get those jump balls on the outside, which it's something that the Pats haven't had in a while. Trying to think the last time they've had someone like that. And
Probably
I've got
Randy
to,
Moss.
yeah, that's really who I'm going back to. I know Brandon LaFell was probably the biggest wide receiver Brady's had since then, and obviously he's not been an NFL star or anything like that. So I think N'Keal Harry's going to give them something offensively that they haven't had for a while. So he's a big weapon for Brady. You bring back Philip Dorsett, who was a solid contributor last year, and if Demaryius Thomas can get healthy and even be kind of you know decent, not even all the way back to his Pro Bowl level, but just contribute, he's another big receiver out wide that could help a lot this year. So I think their wide receivers are in position to kind of make up for the lost targets, the lost production from Gronk retiring.
Yeah. And then we had a question here from Ron Agers about the Patriots.
Shout
he
out.
says, yep. His Twitter is Sport World Order, all caps. But his question is, will the AFC East be locked by the Patriots by week 10? So this is by week 10, played 9 games, some teams 8.
Yeah.
Pretty much halfway through the season. My personal answer to this is, in all of our heads, it's going to be a lock, but mathematically, it definitely won't be a lock just because the Patriots, I'll give them a couple losses this year, probably 4 losses or so, but most of them will be in the early weeks. So, halfway through the season, they might be sitting at like 5-3 or something like that. And in no division or no world at all is 5-3 a lock to win the division. So that's kind of my take on it. But in all of our minds, they're gonna be the lock because they're already the lock going into the predictions. I don't think anybody's, the betting as far as like the Vegas odds. I'd be shocked if there's any division favorite more than the Patriots to win their division. I mean, they're the conference favorite, Super Bowl favorite too. So that's my take on it. You guys can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it's just too early for really anybody. I mean, if you had said something like, "Well, they have it locked up by week 14 or something," then yeah, maybe I'd say yes. But week 10 is just too early. I mean, like Zach said, in our heads, unless something unforeseen happens, in our heads it'll be, "Oh yeah, New England's already got this locked up. There's no competition here." But Ray, you said mathematically, and how you also talked about how the Patriots are notoriously slow starters. They peak at the right time. They peak later in the season and in the playoffs when they need to. So you're right. They might be going into week 10 with like a 5-3 or a 6-2 record or something like that. So I highly doubt that they'll have it locked up by then. I mean, if they do, then it wouldn't surprise me, honestly. But it won't happen. It's too early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page here. I think for sure, obviously, they're going to win the division, but that's just mathematically is too early for anyone to, I think, clinch a division.
So, just looking at this team here, I've got a question for Nathan since he follows the team.
Okay.
How is their offensive line depth? Because I see Ted Karras. He's pretty much their backup. Yeah, I mean, like, I know they have a great offensive line coach, and I'm not actually worried about their offensive line because it seems like they have a revolving door of left tackles. But
yeah,
and Isaiah Wynn's supposed to be good. He was a first-round pick last year. He was hurt, but
sure.
But as far as their depth, if some of these guys get hurt, how do you think that's going to be?
Depth-wise, yeah, it's always kind of. I think it's been kind of hard for us in the past. We had Adrian Waddle was kind of our guy. He signed with shoot, I don't remember who he signed with now. But he was kind of our guy the last few years where someone went down, like, a guard or tackle, he kind of plug in and play. So this year, obviously,
Oh,
you can see.
Bills.
Oh, the Bills.
signed him.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. I saw his name on one of the rosters.
He's on IR though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we lost him, but as you can see, Ted Karras is in 3 different positions. I think he's kind of our utility guy where I'm sure he's being prepped to, fill in wherever necessary. We have a great O-line coach in Dante Scarnecchia. He's been coaching for, I think, almost 50 years now. So I think I definitely trust that. I think our starters are talented enough to get it done. I think I trust him if something, goes wrong, injury-wise, to get whoever's up next. I think whoever's up next will be,
because it looks like
definitely
Skipper and
ready.
Karras are. Skipper's like your swing tackle, and then Karras is the inside man. But I mean, that's kind of weird that most teams have more than 2 guys in as their backup positions.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess they're really confident in those 7, and then everybody else is just kind of there. But
Yeah, we've got a couple
interesting.
of rookies. Yadni, I don't know how to say his last name. Yadni, could you stay from I totally
How do you say
butchered
that?
But I think he was from West Virginia, and I don't even attempt the other guy's name. Froholt from Arkansas.
Hajalt Froholt.
Yeah, Hajalte.
That's probably
Maybe.
very wrong. I apologize. But
Yeah, he starts getting some starting reps. I'll have to learn how to pronounce that for sure. But I think those guys are probably technically backups as well. I know they're rookies, but they'd probably be thrown in there too if we had some injury needs. But finishing out the offense, I think the Pats probably have one of the most dynamic running back groups, I would say, in the league. There's not one player that's like a superstar like a Zeke Elliott or Todd Gurley, but I think Michelle is gonna continue being.
Okay, I got a quick question here about Michelle.
Yeah.
Is Michelle gonna be the for sure number 1 guy? Because Belichick switches his running back every week. You think that's still gonna be the case, or you think Michelle's gonna get the majority?
I think Michelle, judging by his workload at the end of last season and in the playoff, he had that huge game versus the Chargers. I think he's gonna be as close to a true starting running back as the Pats have had, in a while.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone makes
predictions about them.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a hard position traditionally to make picks about because Belichick changes things up every week based on the game plan. But I think he'll get a lot of carries for sure this year, and I think it's great because James White's almost like another wide receiver.
Yeah,
He's a true
pretty
pass
much.
catching back.
That's pretty much, yeah.
So it's they got a kind of dynamic deal going there.
Yeah, so this Patriots segment here is really turning kind of into like a Q&A for Nathan here.
Yeah.
I'm just asking him questions and seeing what he says. So I'll let Connor if he's got any questions about the Patriots.
Well, I'm interested, at least on the offense here. I'm interested to see because, in my opinion, you're talking about you think Michelle's going to get a lot of the carries. I think Michelle almost is a defined number 1 back. Just the way I saw him perform last year, I don't see how you can't feed him the ball. I mean, it's probably the most New England's run the ball in a long time also. Because normally you think in New England, they're just like Tom Brady dropping back to pass, whatever. But I'm interested to see what you think Rex Burkhead's role is going to be in this new offense. Because if Sony Michel is going to be like the mainly number 1 guy, and obviously James White is a terrific pass catcher, what do you think Rex Burkhead's role is going to be in the offense?
I think Rex Burkhead, obviously they rotate their backs, all kinds of different ways, but I think he's gonna carve out a lot of the goal line and short yardage carries. I know it sounds kind of weird because he's a smaller guy.
That for fantasy. Yeah,
that's definitely where I was getting to. He's gonna be frustrating for people in fantasy because you look back at the Chiefs game in the AFC Championship. What really stuck out to me is he's the guy who got the ball on the goal line in overtime to get the game-winning touchdown. So that just kind of shows to me that Belichick trusted him over Michelle and all the other guys to put the ball in his hands with, really the season on the line right there. So I think he's definitely a guy that will get the ball a lot, 4th and 1s on the goal line, that type stuff. Probably going to make a lot of Sony Michel fantasy owners angry with poaching some touchdowns this year. But he also does a lot as a receiver, so I don't know. I can kind of see him all over the field.
Okay. And then my last question here is going to be the tight end question.
Oh, yeah, that question.
Ben Watson suspended for 4 games, but even when he comes back, I mean, the man's super old. I'm not sure how fast he is anymore compared to his earlier days. But my question is, okay, so who's going to be their main tight end? And then is that someone fantasy-wise that you think you could rely on just because the Brady tight end thing? Because obviously these names aren't well known.
Yeah. I would have to say fantasy wise, I don't think I personally would want to trust. I won't want to have to rely on any of the Pats tight ends this year. I like the Benjamin Watson pickup just because, he played on the Patriots. He was drafted by the Pats back in 2004, so he spent a few years with us and he's familiar with the system and Tom Brady and all that stuff. But he is, like you said, really old and he's going to be suspended the first 4 games, so I don't know how much he has left in the tank production-wise. And then we haven't seen a lot of Matt Lacoste playing, for the Pats. He just came in this offseason, as did Lance Kendricks. But Lance Kendricks has a little bit more of a track record. Not that he was ever a star at any point, but, it's definitely got some name recognition there. And I could see him starting at least the first 4 games out.
Okay, but you wouldn't like trust him to. You don't think he's gonna be. You think it's just gonna be like an average tight end sort of thing. Or you don't think it's gonna. You don't think Brady's gonna like make him a star or anything, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Especially because they have so many more other weapons that they're not gonna rely on the tight end position like they did with Gronk.
They're actually gonna run the ball.
Yeah, they can run the ball. They can throw their receivers now. So I think if anything, tight end will kind of be their, kind of forgotten weapon almost.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely some good questions. I spend way too much time, reading about this team and all that stuff. So I got.
Man, I'm sure all of us. All of us.
Yeah. Whenever we get to the north with the Steelers, and then when we get to the south, because both Eric and Zach are Jags fans, so that's gonna be interesting.
Well, see, also because we know our South. Eric and I have told each other our South rankings and stuff. Nathan might not know. Connor probably knows mine, but we're probably going to have a little bit of a debate too when it comes to that because they are different, and that'll be fun to do. Obviously, Eric.
Y'all don't know, but I'm with Eric on the rankings for the South. I'm not with Zach on this one. I'm with Eric.
I think Nathan will be on my side just on the fact that he usually picks the same picks as me in these things, but
it's usually Eric and I, and then you.
I'm not going to spoil where our picks are, but Connor did predict our picks right, even before we told him.
I had a gut feeling about when we'll get to that, but I had a gut feeling that I was like, I think I know what Zach's going to do, and I think I know what Eric's going to do.
Yeah, as a family member or cousin, he knew what we were going to think. But
back to the East.
Back. I'll have this one. We've got one more Twitter question. Connor, if you have any more questions you want to ask him before the Twitter one, then we'll go to the Jets.
Yeah, no, I mean it's pretty. Okay. I think we pretty much covered everything because we know about the defense. I mean, but it's really all the questions this year are really going to be on offense. So.
Okay, so our last Twitter question here comes from the Lucid Podcast, and he's got another Jets question too, but his Patriots question is, how many more seasons do you think that the Patriots will keep their dominant reign on the AFC East for?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tough because with the Patriots this year, I mean, I know Tom Brady's still going strong, but obviously we have seen last year there were some cracks. Like he threw his highest interception total since like 2004, obviously. But I mean, it's just so hard to bet against them, and especially with Belichick. I mean, it's of my opinion that I think Belichick's the greatest coach of all time, and so the fact that he can just take guys that you've never heard of and make these Super Bowl winning teams is like, I don't know how he does it, but he does, and it's really annoying for everybody who's not a Patriots fan. But
he videotapes other teams' practices. That's
but so I think it's even after Brady's gone. I think it's going to be as long as Belichick is there. I think they have a chance because I mean, and the other contributing factor here is that when are the other three teams actually going to be good enough to get that division crown? I mean, they just don't seem. I mean, Buffalo and the Jets look like they might have bright futures, maybe, and then obviously Miami's in the can right now, but. But yeah, it's going to all depend. I think it's as long as Belichick is there, they have a chance to at least do it. I think at least a few more seasons they'll hold on to their reign in the AFC East. I don't see it happening within the next 2 or 3 seasons, but maybe after that, who knows? If the other teams can maybe put it together and build teams, then they could do it. But I don't know. It's tough to call. As long as Belichick is there, even after Brady's gone, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same page at this one. I think it's almost more so are the other teams going to come and take the division from the Pats even when Brady and Belichick are gone. You know, I give Brady probably this year and the next year to be his effective, best quarterback in the NFL type self. And after that, I could realistically see his decline happening. And then who knows how much longer Belichick's going to want to coach after that. But even without those guys, I think they'll leave the team in good hands as far as their next head coaching and coordinator hires. But I think it's more the fact are the Jets and the Dolphins and the Bills going to stop being really kind of incompetent front office wise and put a team together to catch up to the Pats. So that's kind of, I think, what it more hinges on.
Yeah, not so much the Pats, but the other teams, really.
Yeah. So I think it could be a few years, at least 3 years for me.
Okay, I'm gonna say 2 years on this one. I think they've got this season in the bag, but I feel like this is gonna be Brady's last decent season, and then the next season I think is gonna be more up for debate, and it depends on Darnold and Rosen, which one of those guys, or if those guys can perform to what they are hyped up to be.
Allen too.
Yeah, Allen. What did I say?
You said Rosen.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to say Rosen. I'm sorry. I meant to say Allen. And,
you mean Fitzpatrick?
No, I meant to say Allen and Darnold. But
yeah.
And then also, I think Tua is going to be a great quarterback too. But like, this is like just a prediction thing. It hasn't happened. But if he goes to Miami, I think Flores could be a good coach there, and I think Miami could be competing in maybe 4 or 5 years down the road. But for the immediate future, I think this season's this season's really going to be telling because if the Patriots, if Brady still plays well, then I really don't know when it's going to be. But I expect a little bit of a decline now, and then the next season, I think, it'll be much more wide open. But it's also, wishful thinking too. But,
for Zach and I, at least.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Jets here. This is who Nate and I have predicted second, and then Connor's got them third. Their team is interesting because they've definitely gotten better. This is one of those teams, kind of like San Francisco. If I want to make comparisons, I'm going to compare this team to San Francisco because they did make some pretty big signings, and they have some young players that are exciting on their team to watch. And while I have them second here, I don't have them winning a wild card. I think there's too many other good teams in the AFC that are going to fight for wild cards. So I feel like the Jets are going to be second or third out on the wild card list. But really why I have them over the Bills is their offensive skill position people with Robbie Anderson, Quincy Enunwa, Jamison Crowder as their 3 wide receivers. It's a solid combo. There's no, superstar there, but there's also you also feel good about all those guys. Their offensive line is pretty weak. That's they're like I'd say Buffalo's got a better offensive line, but it's a pretty weak offensive line.
But not as bad as Miami, though.
Yeah, still not as bad as Miami, but I mean, Kelvin Beachum is their left tackle. If that's the case, man, I really pray for Darnold. But hopefully that Chuma Edoga guy can beat him out in camp, that rookie guy. But because Beachum, he's pretty old and he was a Steeler too. So Connor,
he was meh. I think he actually played right. I think he actually played right tackle when he was with us because he was a terrible pass blocker. So I don't know why the Jets are trusting him over there on the left tackle position. But
our lads might be messing up here on this one or have a wrong prediction. I'd hope, but and then that Assembly guy too has been kind of and the whole Ryan, their center's okay, but
he's old. Ryan Khalil's old.
Yeah, he's an old guy, but at least like you know who he is, and so the offensive line is really weak for them, and I know that's going to be a case for Connor's thing when we talk about Bell, and I'm not going to expect Bell to be like Pittsburgh Bell, but he's definitely going to be better than Bilal Powell's been for him, and Ty Montgomery's an interesting player to have, kind of like a weapon, and so their offensive positions, I'd say Bell is going to be better than any of those running backs Buffalo has. And then defensively, I feel like their pass rush is going to be really nice with Leonard Williams and Quinnen Williams. Got the Williams duo there. But
not related.
Not related, but Quinnen Williams is going to be a beast in this league. I really think he's going to be a great nose tackle for him. And he can rush the passer too at that spot too. He's not just a run stuffer. He can get sacks, and he's
pretty rare for a nose tackle.
And he's I think Saban said he's the best guy that he's coached on the D line in quite some time, and that says a lot coming from Alabama. But in the rest of their defense too, they've put money in with C.J. Mosley getting that huge contract. And their secondary is really pretty weak, except for Jamal Adams. But Jamal Adams is a star too. He's a very good player. So defensively, they're not great, but I feel like they have the ability to get some big plays with some. That's the thing. Buffalo seems to have more good starters, whereas the Jets seem to have a couple of stars and potential Pro Bowlers and stuff, but then they've got some big holes too. So it's
really
kind of
players.
It's kind of like a talent disparity. They've got some really talented people, but really the season is going to hinge on Sam Darnold's ability. And I'm not a huge Sam Darnold fan. People really overrate this guy, but I felt like I felt he was a better prospect coming out of his junior year at USC, and I think he regressed a little bit his senior season there. So that kind of concerned me, but he was, the Browns were wise to pick Mayfield ahead of him. But so people though act like he's the king or something, that I don't get it. But so I'm not, as high as most people are on him, but I think he'll be better than last year because he was like the youngest quarterback ever to start. So he's only going to get better. And like I said, this team's not gonna be competing for the division or by any stretch, but I do feel like with the amount of stars that they have, that they're gonna finish second. But ceiling floor, I'll give a ceiling of 9 wins, making a wild card somehow, but that's not my prediction. And then the floor, I'll give them third place with like 6 wins. So I think they're in that 7-win spot, 7 maybe 8 for the Jets, but I'll be curious to hear what you guys think.
Well, the Jets, for me, I mean, Sam Darnold. Yeah, I'm with Zach. I'm not sold on Sam Darnold at all. I mean, I do think he'll be a little bit better, but I I don't know. I mean, he didn't really show. He had flashes of good last year, but then he also had flashes of really bad.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that's going to hold hold the Jets back here at quarterback is that if Sam Darnold were to either get injured or start playing really mediocrely, their backup is Trevor Siemian, which he's definitely not a starter. I mean, we saw how he played in Denver. He was pretty mediocre, and you know, I don't know. The quarterback's going to be an interesting position for them, especially if Sam Darnold struggles, because Trevor Siemian is not the guy by any stretch of the imagination. So, and then wide receiver wise, I mean, I know Zach likes the trio. I think they're okay. They're not. Robbie Anderson is kind of he's another one of those. He has games where he does really good. He's more of a deep threat, I think, than just a true. You know, he's not going to be. I don't think he's a number one guy. I think Quincy Enunwa would have to be the number one guy because I think Robbie Anderson's more of a number two, kind of like a deep threat, and obviously Jamison Crowder's a slot receiver, and then Le'Veon Bell. I mean, I saw him. I was sad to see him go at first, when he decided he was going to do his holdout and everything. But after the way he acted, I really wasn't sad to see him go. I mean, him and Antonio Brown both. I'll get to that when we talk about the Raiders. But, I'm kind of glad both of them are gone. Their toxic attitudes in the locker room and everything. And, yeah, so I think I'm with Zach. I don't think he'll be as good as he was in Pittsburgh at all. I mean, the offensive line is just it's going to be what takes him down because his running style is he gets the ball and he waits for a hole to open and then he bursts through that hole. And I just don't think those holes are going to be there really ever for him to do that. Because I remember I think it was the game against the Chargers a few years ago when he got that game-winning touchdown. I was praying that they weren't going to hand the ball off to him because I was like, please don't hand the ball off to Le'Veon Bell on the goal line because he's not a hard-nosed runner. Like, he's not going to get that 1 yard if you need it. He somehow got it. I don't know how. I guess the Steelers' offensive line did a good enough job to do that. But, I mean, it's not the kind of runner he is at all. He's never going to get you that he's never going to be a goal line back, which means if you need like 1 or 2 yards, you're not going to hand it off to him.
You saw that too in the playoff game against Jacksonville 2 years ago too,
right?
Where he couldn't convert the 4th and 1s, but
yeah. So I don't know why they didn't just QB sneak with Ben.
Yeah, that was there was a lot of questionable coaching calls there.
that I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of poor coaching decisions in that game by Tomlin and Todd Haley. But yeah, Le'Veon Bell. I just don't think he's gonna. I think we can talk about him right now. We had the question on Twitter if Zach will go back to it.
Oh yeah.
With, he asked how big of an impact will Bell have on the Jets. I mean, I don't think it's going to be too big, honestly. I think he's going to be underwhelming. I think they're going to expect more from him than he's actually going to put out. I think as a pass catcher, I think he could have an impact. But just as a rusher, I don't think he's going to have a lot of impact at all. Because with the offensive line troubles and the way he runs, I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to kind of be like how Christian McCaffrey was his first year in Carolina, where not terribly good rushing stats. They also had Jonathan Stewart at the time, but not terribly good rushing stats. But I think he'll put up some numbers in the passing game for sure, because Le'Veon Bell could play wide receiver if he wanted to. He's that good of a pass catcher. So. But that's just my thought on his impact. I think he'll have an impact as a pass catcher, but not as a rusher. I'll see what you guys think.
I kind of agree. I kind of have the same idea about or opinion about Bell. I think pass catching wise, he's gonna make life a lot easier for Sam Darnold because he will be there to get all the dump off passes and screen passes, and he's definitely talented enough to make something out of those short passes in space, pick up yards after the catch. But as a rusher, I don't think he can be bad this year per se. But by the standards that everyone kind of associates with Bell when he was in Pittsburgh, all the stats he put up there rushing, I think he'll have a down year by those standards for sure. So I think impact-wise, he'll definitely be an upgrade over, Bilal Powell and Elijah McGuire. But I don't think we're gonna see him like challenge the to be the rushing champion or any of that type stuff this year.
For sure. Yeah, I like about the Bell topic. I definitely agree with both of you guys, but I feel like his pass catching, thing is going to be the difference maker for the team. Like with Darnold, young quarterbacks like to have a safety valve, and he's going to be a pretty good safety valve for him. But as far as rushing stats go, he's not. He's definitely going to have to adjust, And then also he missed a whole year too, so you really don't know how that's going to be. But he's an upgrade, and I don't think they overpaid for him because
No,
he didn't
definitely not.
He didn't get as much as he wanted, and so it's I think it's a good move for him. They had so much cap space to spend, so I don't think he's gonna be the reason that he takes them over the top of Buffalo, but he'll contribute, I think. So
yeah, I mean, you're right that they definitely didn't overpay for him. I mean, had he not acted like a jerk, he would have made a lot more money had he stayed in Pittsburgh. But yeah, and taking a year off, and especially since he gained weight in the offseason too. I mean, some reports had him at like 260. So, Eddie Lacy style weight here. So, and then just quickly touch on their defense. I mean, the front, the Williams pair will be good. CJ Mosley's good. But yeah, and Jamal Adams. But outside of that, the defense just does not impress me at all. I mean, I think it's gonna be a rough time for them. And one thing that none of us have mentioned on any of the teams throughout this episode, but I think kicker Chandler Catanzaro is pretty inconsistent as a kicker.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I think they might have some Chicago style problems with that at the kicker position.
That's a liability. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why I'd give them a ceiling of like 8-8 probably, and second place missing the playoffs, and then the floor of maybe 6 wins in third place. So not too big of a disparity between 6 and 8 wins, I think, for the Jets for me.
Yep. So since Connor's back here, we haven't had a true Connor current events section in a little while, but that's back. Next time Eric's back, we're gonna make sure to get a rant because it's been a while since we've had an Eric rant. But
we're going to the AFC West, so he has a rant plan for that.
Okay.
From what
I think
we all kind of do. But
yeah.
I won't spoil it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll make a comment below on what you think it's going to be about.
Yeah. My laptop here needs some juice, so let me go and grab my charger. But Connor, you can start talking about the NASCAR results.
Yeah, I mean, Watkins Glen, one of my favorite. I didn't get to watch it, but it's one of my favorite tracks because it's a road course and there's actually right turns. Such a foreign concept in NASCAR, but right turns. And another Chase Elliott with the win at Watkins Glen. I was pretty surprised by that. I've never thought of him to be a road course guy. I mean, there's a lot of the really good drivers in NASCAR, like, Jimmy Johnson back when he was winning his championships, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano. They're good on every course, even road courses. But then you have these drivers who there's some drivers who really specialize in them, and some drivers that are better than them than others. Like Denny Hamlin's one of the guys. He's really good on road courses, and probably because he's so good at Martinsville, a really short track, he knows how to get the braking and the timing right in the tracks. So I was pretty surprised to see Chase Elliott win the race. I mean, judging by his points, it looks like he led most of the laps, and he might have won some of the stages. And then second and third place don't surprise me. Truex and Hamlin are both good on road courses. I got to give another shout out to my boy Matt DiBenedetto, another top 10 finish for him. So all the teams out there need to take notice of this guy and give him a ride, because I'm going to keep advocating for him to get a good piece of equipment underneath him. So give him a ride.
Well, yeah, man. And so I just plugged in my charger, so I'm back here. I heard you talking about him and how you're a fan. Definitely, like, I'd say tweet at him or something, because actually we had Eric tweeted a picture with Ronnie Harrison with a couple people that he met with, and surprisingly enough, he actually retweeted that to his page, which is pretty cool. That's our biggest, celebrity tweet thing. But I'm a big fan of Harrison too, and so he's not a guy that's like super popular or big right now. So, I definitely say, like, follow him on Twitter and comment on his post or something. But
yeah, that's a good idea. And also, one thing I want to mention very quickly also with NASCAR is we're getting close to, I think there are 4 races left before the chase. There's like, I think Michigan, the night race at Bristol, Darlington, and Indy, and then we're into the chase. So we're getting to the point where there's some of these drivers who are on the cut line, like Jimmy Johnson. And actually, I think Jimmy Johnson would be out. I don't know if he'd be out of the playoffs right now. It's pretty interesting. I know he had a bit of a weak finish at Watkins Glen, but I'm not. The way the chase works is that if you win, you get a spot as long as you're in the top 30 in points. So I don't think anybody below Jimmy Johnson is won, or like Clint Boyer or any of these guys that are on the cut line right now. But we're getting to the point where all the races really matter, and you're gonna have to get these points. And maybe some guy out of nowhere, maybe Matt DiBenedetto can win a race and clinch a spot in the chase. Who knows? It's the beauty of the new chase system, unlike the old system where, just because you won, it didn't mean it guaranteed you a spot or anything. But if you can win, then you can get in.
yeah, I like that rule.
Yeah, I like it too. When it also throughout the playoffs, how they split the playoffs up into 4 different rounds, but one way that you can guarantee you go on to the next round is if you win. So there'll be guys that'll be 80 points or whatever out of a spot in the next round, but then they'll win the race and that gets them in. So it puts a big emphasis on winning, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to move on to some Tennessee Volunteers basketball news that I'll let Zach talk about here.
Yeah. So I literally just saw this right before we started, and it just got announced before we started our podcast. But Keon Johnson, who's going to be in the class of 2020, so he's not going to play for Tennessee this year, but then next year he'll play as a freshman. He was deciding, and I have seen a little bit of news on him before. Back they had, his list kept getting shorter and shorter. Like they'd say he's down to 8 teams, now he's down to 6 teams. But I didn't really follow it or bring it to much attention because I didn't, it's still such a big list. You can't really, hold your hopes on like a Blackshear thing, and he's down to just 2 or 3 teams. But he did decide to commit to Tennessee, which is, big news for the team. He plays a shooting guard position, so he's gonna, replace a guy like Jordan Bowden on their team right now, who's going to be a senior and graduate after this year. But I definitely can't complain or anything. He's a 4-star, number 27 in the class, and he was the top-ranked guy from Tennessee. So it's good to see that the Vols are, holding down their territory of Tennessee with competing with a school like Memphis, who traditionally gets the big recruits. And it looks like he decided over Ohio State, which makes it even better. Yeah. So definitely, I know my friend Mark won't be happy about that, but yeah, that makes it even sweeter too.
Does it make up for Kerry Blackshear?
Here's the thing though, is Blackshear is a 1-year player for sure. This guy's got the chance of playing a couple seasons. So, and then another thing too, I've got on my phone, not necessarily on the website, but it says here that Tennessee has the 5th best class in America for the season currently. So,
oh wow,
that's a huge, huge shift from the past where they've signed lower tier guys and stuff. But since they've had 2 tournament runs the last 2 seasons, and Rick Barnes committing to Tennessee, signing a contract extension there, I think it's really culture change.
Yeah, from football to basketball.
Yeah. So It's a good news story for Eric and I and Connor too.
Yeah,
So,
I always pull for them because I know my whole family is from around the Knoxville area, so
yeah.
it'd be kind of bad if I didn't. So
And plus, they're not in the same conferences as your favorite
right, yeah,
teams,
they're
so
not
it's
competing against UNC and Appalachian State, so
mhm.
they, I can pull for them, and obviously my mom is a alum of the University of Tennessee, so that also gives me incentive to
Yep.
pull for them. But yeah, I
Here's
like
the
what.
Instagram
Right, yeah, but
post.
it's
Oh,
really interesting,
I
like you
said it.
say, a culture change because Tennessee forever has been a football school. I mean, we talk, you got these schools that like Kentucky's a basketball school, UNC's a basketball school, Alabama's a football school. But Tennessee had been a football school for a long time, and it's really interesting just to see the shift now to where they're kind of focusing a lot more on men's basketball because
Oh yeah, true.
they had a great women's basketball team for a long time, but now they're finally starting to make moves in men's basketball. And I know, unfortunately for you and Eric and the rest of our family, their football team is really going downhill. So
Yeah.
it's good to see that their basketball team is kind of making up for that.
Yep.
Um, Move on to the last topic here. We mentioned it before. The big story in the NFL right now, contract wise, with Ezekiel Elliott, and he's very. This is mirroring Le'Veon Bell of last year, where he's not gonna. He said he won't play without a new contract, and this is gonna be interesting because obviously Ezekiel Elliott, he's still under contract. This isn't like Le'Veon Bell, where Bell was just franchise tagged, and it was a situation like that. We hear about it all the time with players being tagged, then they're not going to play if they get tagged and whatever because they want long term contracts. But Zeke is still under contract. He's still under his rookie year, his rookie deal, and so which why he's not making a lot of money right now, but the progression of contracts since running backs don't have a long life in the NFL, they have their rookie contract for 4 or 5 years, depending on how good they are.
You
And
can
then
get that fifth year option too if you're a first round pick like
right,
him.
right. So,
Mhm.
but then your second contract is supposed to be your big contract, like, the one where you make all your money. And then your third contract is, you're still around, but you're not really too much of a superstar anymore. So it's interesting that he's talking about this right now and not next year when his deal is actually going to be up because he's still under contract. He's still under his rookie deal. So, and Jerry Jones, the other interesting part is that Jerry Jones has said that, we don't need Ezekiel Elliott. We don't need to be dealing with all this drama. We can win without him, which I don't know if that's entirely true. I mean, if Zeke Elliott does sit out the whole year, I would have to go back and change my NFC East to picking the Eagles over the
For
Cowboys
sure.
because
Yeah.
we talked about this back in the NFC East that none of us think that Dak Prescott can carry the team. So I don't know if they're gonna give him a deal or not. I'm interested to see what you guys think if you think they're gonna really commit to giving him a deal, or if Jerry Jones is gonna stay true to his word and let him sit out,
I
and
think it's a pretty
if he'll stay true to sitting out.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty sticky situation for Zeke because I don't think holding out is a smart move at all, just with the way the running back market is right now. Obviously, Todd Gurley kind of reset everything with that deal last offseason, but then everyone saw, he got hurt at last year, and now, he might not uh, end up living up to that huge value. I think a lot of these teams now are going to be wary of giving that, it's going to be back to before before that deal where they're, really wary about giving running backs the kind of money. And I think especially hard, he saw the way things played out for Le'Veon Bell last year. He thought he had all that leverage to hold out and get a new contract, and the Steelers were just fine letting him sit out. And then, James Conner came in and played really great. So I think knowing all that, um, taking all that into account, I think it was a bad decision for Zeke to sit out because I don't know the Cowboys are going to be a contender without him, but I don't think Jerry Jones is too far off. I think that they can get by without having him. So, yeah, I'm really interested to follow this more and see what happens. Same thing with
Yeah.
what's his name? Melvin Gordon and
Yep. Traded.
We'll get to that. And we're getting AFC West
next episode.
This is an interesting thing because he wants more than Todd Gurley made, but reading here that they're offering him more like Le'Veon Bell money, which he's not going to accept. It seems like he wants to get the most money. That's the thing when you're these guys, like you might not necessarily be the best player at that position, but when your contract's up and you're a free agent, like you're going to sign the newest deal, the highest offer. But the thing is that the Cowboys have all the leverage here, kind of like Jalen Ramsey. Like he's under contract for 2 more years, so I don't think Zeke will hold out. That's my gut, but I mean, shoot, I didn't think Le'Veon Bell was going to hold out either.
That's why you picked him in fantasy.
Yeah. So I was screwed over by that. So I'm definitely not going to play any. I'm not going to, risk my chances and lose out on a first round pick again in fantasy. But it's this is just descent for the Cowboys, and the Cowboys also, I know Jerry Jones tends to reward guys that go to camp, and since Zeke's been holding out, I feel like now their focus is going to be on paying Prescott and Amari Cooper, and it'd be interesting if he gets traded now. I haven't heard any talk about that, but it just seems like these
I don't think anybody would give up enough for him.
Yeah,
right.
But if somebody has a lot of money and needs a running back, I could see it, but I just don't know what team that would be.
Yeah.
So it's really going to be up to Zeke. He knows, he's got the power to show up, and he's going to be losing out on a lot of money if he doesn't, getting all these fines accumulated, and then he's still on his rookie deal, which is, not a whole lot. So if I were him, I would, as a running back, I would try and get that Le'Veon Bell money. Make sure it's a lot of guaranteed, because that's the thing is, it's not like the NBA contracts, which are all fully guaranteed. Like the guaranteed money is really where it's at in these NFL contracts. But we'll know more as time goes on with this thing. This is just kind of a developing story. But with that being said, guys, we'll wrap this podcast up here now. And thank you to everybody listening. Thank you to Lucid Podcast and to Sport World Order for coming up with these questions. I know we just posted this morning, the question thread, so we didn't get a whole lot of feedback on it, but next time we'll be sure to put it out earlier, and we really appreciate you guys asking these questions. And for the Steelers one, we'll kind of, when we get to the AFC North, we'll put that as like how the Patriots were, like a Q&A thing. We'll ask Connor questions, and then the Jaguars one will be a fun one too when we talk about the South. Eric and I will have a little debate going on. So then the West is going to be really fun to talk about. So stay tuned. We've got some good episodes lined up for you guys. And
we got the least competitive division out of the way.
Yeah. This is the least competitive, least interesting one. So
Sure.
Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully you took something away from this, and catch you guys next time.
See you guys.
See ya.
I'll do Eric's peace. Peace.